Tonight on the 252 ESPN Radio Network, we have exclusive coverage of the Major League Baseball All-Star Home Run Derby live from Nationals Park. This coverage will start at about 8 p.m. here on 252 ESPN Radio, and that kind of nudges me to also remind you tomorrow night we'll have coverage of the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. So for you second shifters, you people out there working while everybody else is chillaxing, we got your All-Star Game. I am also super excited that Daryl Harris, our resident baseball insider, baseball encyclopedia, is going to come on and talk some baseball with us.
He's a true baseball fan. He's the baseball fan in his purest form.
Yes, I absolutely. He's a guy that deserves a Hall of Fame vote.
Yes, sometimes in its greatest, sometimes in its most evil form, but baseball's purest form.
I think so. I don't
want
want to give away too
train
much.
Wreck. Yeah, it could be great or it could be a train wreck.
Want to give away? He's also one of the team over at Men on Radio offering nonsensical solutions. Thursday mornings on 103.9 FM. Currently, our sister station. Some weird innuendos there. So it is time for the headlines, which also I want to remind everybody that I miss Carolina. I talked to her.
Did you?
I showed her that I kidnapped her chair.
Nice. What'd she say about that? She bothered by that?
Yes. Yeah, she called me a thief.
I think we are actually due for some chair upgrades around the office.
I think so too.
And maybe the next
especially
petition
sitting in her
to
chair.
management.
Now she deserves this chair because this is the
It's the best chair in the office.
primo chair.
See, I had that chair,
which technically was yours because Rebecca had hoarded this,
right?
And then when she left,
how did she get the best chair?
I have no idea.
See,
it went to a salesperson that was here before.
Okay. Because now when Rebecca left, I got that chair.
And then
I lasted like a week with
Carolina.
Well, I like Carolina's chair, the one I have here. This is Carolina's old chair.
Back.
I like the tall back. I like to be able to rock back a lot like this.
Yes.
And I don't. Maybe that did rock back, but it didn't rock back enough. I don't know. I'm too big for that chair.
Okay. This is perfect.
It's a good chair.
It's just right.
It's better than the other one you were using, or your old chair, which was
broken,
like hanging on by one screw.
It would just sort of like lean.
Right. It's why we were stationed next to the wall. It's because of the old chair, because you had to. Part of the chair was the wall. It's like, sit here, lean this way. The wall will hold you up. The wheels won't slide out, and you'll be safe.
And I thought that's what they'll do. That's where I'll be. They'll be like, where did he die? He was like, he was doing the Thursday show, and
that chair finally
they just propped him up there, and it was it. They had to pry him from there. So sad as it is. No better segue. Tomorrow is Taco Tuesday, where tacos are just $1.25.
Artfully done.
$1.25. And they're open until 9 o'clock now. So now you have a whole extra hour to eat tacos. No. When I said it's open till 9, don't think that I meant, that means it gives you an extra hour for you to get there. No. Get there early, because as long as you're there and they're open, the tacos are $1.25. Plus, tortas, burritos, everything they make there is authentic and delicious. It's unbelievable. It's Taqueria San Luis, 1706 Highway 70, just outside of New Bern. Proud sponsor of our headlines.
By Bob Herrick, ESPN.com. Jordan Spieth knew he would be returning the Claret Jug to RNA officials on Monday at Carnoustie. He didn't realize he would be part of a ceremony to do so. Quote, "It was like, man, this was my possession. It's the coolest trophy that our sport has to offer, so having to return that was certainly difficult. It kind of hit me a little bit there on the tee box," said Spieth. RNA, the tournament organizer, actually has more than one Claret Jug. The official one has a home in the RNA clubhouse. Another one is given to the winner, who is able to take it with him wherever he chooses, with the stipulation it is returned on Monday of Open Week. It is Open Week.
Here's what I need to know. What I need to know is, how much does it cost?
The Claret Jug?
Yes.
Okay.
Because if I'm one of these big wig golfers, you know what I mean? If I'm one of these real players, as I like to call them, the handful of guys that are consummate professionals who you feel like are going to be top 10 and contend for majors for the next 10, 15 years, who are making sweet bank right now. Do you have a price?
So apparently a Claret Jug is like a thing. It's like a style. But I guess this is the Claret Jug. So I am still working on that.
Okay.
Not known yet.
Okay, not known yet. I mean, listen, I would imagine the word is priceless that we're looking for. But what would happen if it came up missing? I mean, what if one, and here's what I'm saying, wink, wink. What if you were to come back and say, I lost it. We were in the mountains, and I was on a ski lift, and I was taking it up the ski lift with me. Now, that seems crazy, but in truth, if you won the Open Championship and the Claret Jug, and you took it with you for a whole year, would you not take it like on the ski lift?
It would be everywhere with me. Yeah, it's
on
like
the Ferris wheel.
Right. I mean, it's like the Stanley Cup thing, right? Like you do everything with it. You sleep with it. You eat out of it. You drink out of it. Everything. Yeah, I would disrespect the Claret Jug if I had the Claret Jug for a year. How do you feel about the whole...
I'd like to spice up our marriage.
Right.
Me, you, and the cup, baby.
Baby, we've hit a little bit of a rough patch. What do you say we bring someone or something else into the bedroom?
You should get along. It's rigid like you are.
It's cold as ice. Doesn't have a heart.
It's emotionless. I say things to it, and it just...
There's like zero information on the Claret Jug and what it's worth.
Yeah,
or a lot more than I feel like reading, rather.
I don't know. I would assume is it not one of those things where, because, I mean, when you win the Super Bowl, not everybody takes home the Vince Lombardi trophy. And, I'm not quite sure exactly how. It's not like the Stanley Cup, right? Aren't there like, for every Super Bowl, they make a new Vince Lombardi trophy, and then it goes to the team that wins it.
Right.
And they get to keep that trophy. Right? The Stanley Cup, so when you win it, and there's other trophies like that, like the Borg Warner Trophy for the Indianapolis 500 is one of these where instead of everybody getting their name on it, the driver gets like a mold of his face put on it. So every time there's a new winner, they add a new face. So you don't get to keep the original too, because it's like, I don't know, like 8 feet tall. So they, like the Stanley Cup, you don't get to keep that one either. They make the replicas where you get to keep those, where, I guess the organization, has some sort of replica, and, players get to have these things. I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Same thing with the Lombardi Trophy.
They do get a replica, yeah. So I guess they get the one to take around with them for a year, which they have to return. And
that's the original.
Right. Well, no, because the original is kept at the RNA clubhouse. RNA are the people who put on the British Open every single year. So they have the real Claret Jug, and that's probably the one that gets presented on the green after the Open.
Right.
But then you get a different one. So it's already a replica. And then you have to bring that replica back. But then you get another replica. So they have like it's 1A and 1B. And then you get just a model. So that replica
probably goes in some room there at the establishment. Right, somewhere at the golf place in England.
So apparently,
Scotland, wherever it's at.
So you would think, like most people, if they had this Claret Jug, if you won the Open, you would have it and you would cherish it probably for the rest of your life. And I'm sure most of these golfers do.
I feel like I would.
Apparently, John Daly this past February was trying to auction off his Claret Jug for the second time. He tried to auction it off a few years ago. It didn't really get the bids he was wanting for it. It drew a bid of $10,000 back in 2016, excuse me, for the first time. He did try to auction it off. The current bid, let's see, the trophy was valued at $100,000. I don't know if he ended up selling it or not. But John Daly was trying to fetch some money, and Heritage Auctions, Heritage Auctions, which is one of these auction sites, I guess, valued the Claret Jug at $100,000. So I ask you, do you value that Claret Jug at $100,000 when you know not only is it not the original Claret Jug, it's not even the stuntman Claret Jug, if you will, the one that has to go out with the player for a year. It is the replica of the replica of the replica.
I mean, I don't know what a trophy is. I mean, if you're a big John Daly fan, maybe that means a whole lot to you. if you're John Daly and the trophy doesn't mean anything to you, I mean, I don't know if that's sad if
sad, right?
I mean, it's sad because a guy who was so entertaining for so long obviously has financial situation. Because I mean, the only reason you sell something like that is I've got money problems.
I've got gambling debts.
Yeah, and
if you're John Daly,
and you know, because listen, if he was one of these people that's like, listen, I've got the memory, I want it, you can't take that away from me. But at the same time, I don't know.
Do you think
a little weird.
Do you think we overvalue and just really overpraise trophies in general? The fact that the Stanley Cup has a keeper, like there's someone whose full-time job is to walk around with white gloves and take care of this Stanley Cup. Does that bother you a little bit? That something, because at the end of the day, like, sports is silly. As much as we love sports, it's a game, and it's silly. And what we do here every single day, and what people do all across the landscape of this company, ESPN, it's a silly joke. Well, and we treat these trophies, these pennants, these everything with the utmost respect. Like, oh, the Claret Jug, like, it can't go anywhere. Oh, what are you doing with the Stanley Cup? Gosh. Oh, the Lombardi Trophy, don't take it out of its case.
Right.
I always thought it was kind of funny that, like, I won a lot of trophies as a kid. You know, whether
do you have any of them?
Yeah, they're like in a giant Tupperware box in my parents' house. Like they used to once be on my shelf, and now obviously these are, you know, trophies you get from Newbern Sporting Goods. Go check them out. Newbern Sporting Goods makes the best trophies, customized plaques and trophies.
But
stuff like that, after a while, it's like, okay, it is what it is. The memory is there. The memory's cool. You know, back when I won the Brinson League in 2004, whatever it was, like that's a very cool memory for me. But the trophy from that, not gonna be held on to like it's some awesome thing. And obviously we're talking about very different levels, and we're talking about the Claret Jug versus the trophy I won in a under 12 basketball league. But still, I always thought it was kind of funny that the Stanley Cup, I guess, is the thing that bothers me more than anything. I know there's so much tradition, but I mean, these things aren't even like pure silver or anything, are they? I mean, they're probably just some sort of generic metal. I don't even know. They're just shiny. It's just shiny metal that forged into a cup.
I read an article once about a lot of these things, yes, are made out of gold or made out of silver. There actually is, you know, I think the Stanley Cup's made out of silver. I mean, I think the whole thing's like it valued at a ridiculous amount of money if you just sold the silver and junked off the, you know, like melted it down. Which sounds just sacrilegious coming out of my mouth saying it like that. I mean, we hear all the time about guys selling their championship rings, you know, trophies, jackets, uniform. I mean, to the person who's lived it and played it, you know, it's not. I don't think it's our decision on. Oh, shame on them, sell their stuff. I mean, who are we to judge? Especially if you've ever, you know, needed. You know, if we're thinking about people that may need money desperately,
right.
I mean, who are we to judge somebody selling a ring? I mean, it's like the class ring thing to me. It's like, I mean, the guy played in the Super Bowl, and I don't want them to sell their ring. But if they need money, right. Who am I to say, don't sell your ring, man? Right?
So the Stanley Cup is basically just a giant coin. So, you know, like you look at a quarter, and it's, you know, they're on the outside there might be a little bit of silver, and there might be some trace amounts of silver, but it's a nickel alloy, which basically is just like, you know, nothing, just metal. That's what the Stanley Cup is. It's made out of nickel alloy, and then it's sort of just slightly plated in silver.
One of the other things that's great, and we got to change and go to the next story, but I wanted to bring up the fact, too, that many people may not realize how many people's names are misspelled. Like, how would you I played my whole life to get my name on that trophy because that's like the top of the game, and they misspelled my name. And I'm one of those people, and you got to think, in hockey, there's a lot of people that have like those names.
It's a lot of Z's and Y's in hockey.
Right.
By Todd Archer, ESPN. Michael Irvin agrees with the Pro Football Hall of Fame's decision to not acknowledge Terrell Owens individually during enshrinement weekend in Canton, Ohio next month. Hall of Fame Executive Director Joe Horrigan told the Talk of Fame Sports Network of the decision Thursday. Horrigan said Owens' name will be included when the whole class is announced, and his photograph will appear in the materials about the weekend. The Hall will mail him his gold jacket, which is usually presented on Friday night, first thing Saturday morning.
Well, we talked about this at length last week, and
The only difference now is Michael Irvin has thrown his weight behind it, and I've got that sound if you want to hear.
Let's do it.
Michael Irvin talk about this whole TO decision and what the Hall of Fame has done.
Oh, well, he got the right to make the decision. Yes, he does. And we have the right to say we don't like it. You know, it is what it is. And I'm also disappointed because, you know, we fought for T.O. It wasn't like, you know, T.O. had said that it didn't matter. I don't care about being in the Hall. I don't care about that at all. And everybody wouldn't have invested emotions and feelings into it. And we did. And so when we did, and everybody we talked about it and tried to get him in. We'll talk about it on air because he rightfully belongs in, and then he gets in and he makes that decision. Yeah, I was absolutely disappointed about it. I was disappointed about it.
Last question.
I am too. As we kind of talked about, I think he was, you know, I agree with what a lot of people, I mean, he was obviously a divisive guy. He rubbed people the wrong way in the media. He rubbed teammates the wrong way. But man, he was so entertaining. I mean, get your popcorn ready. You know, let me pull a Sharpie out of my foot. Standing on the star. Still one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Terrell Owens was a great entertainer, and despite that, was one hell of a wide receiver. And arguably, there's only a couple of guys that I put ahead of him. I mean, you know, Randy Moss, Chris Carter, Jerry Rice. Now, I think Art Monk and him are pretty close and right there. I put Art maybe a little bit ahead, but I mean, we're talking about, well, as we've said many times, this is where a lot of times LeBron fan gets all upset because he's not number one. And when you're talking about the greats of greats, you know, you're come on. It's like such an insult. T.O. was one of the greatest guys. In that Eagles Super Bowl loss, he showed up. I mean, you know what I mean? He is a great player. And I think it is a shame that we don't get to get that. And I'm selfish. I wanted it for myself. I wanted to see him because his speech was, who knows what's going to happen here, right? It was just one last shot.
That was the best part. He could go out there and really stick it to the media. These guys that he's really had the beef with, he couldn't just do this kind of, you know, this is a very petty and underhand and backhanded way to sort of take on and insult the media who he felt he was so disrespected by for so long. This was his opportunity to get up there. I mean, man, if T.O. had gotten up there and bashed the media members to their faces at the Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony, that would have taken on a whole different level of effectiveness as opposed to just kind of being petty about the whole thing. And that's really all it is to me. I don't really care at the end of the day because he's in the Hall of Fame. I don't watch the Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony usually if there's nothing funny. If there is a viral clip that comes of this, which would have been the T.O. speech, I would have watched. But other than that, the whole thing is kind of meh to me. I'm glad you mentioned Jerry Rice because did you see this Jerry Rice clip from over the weekend? Now, we might have to censor some of this out, but you talking about Jerry Rice being in the greatest wide receiver of all time candidate. He wanted to take it a different level.
This was the most un-Jerry Rice-like thing I've ever heard of Jerry Rice ever doing.
22,895 yards. Keep going. 208 touchdowns. 13 Super Bowls. I'm the best football player of all time.
So is that some party with Charles Barkley? Yeah, he's up there on stage giving Charles his bona fides and just busted out. Greatest bleeping, you know what, football player of all time.
And, you know,
I ain't gonna argue.
I'm not gonna argue that, but he was. I think a lot of people were on that side because you never heard him say anything like that.
Does it make you support the argument more? Like if Jerry Rice had just said on, you know, some Sunday show, I think I'm the greatest football player of all time. Does that carry the same weight as opposed to the viral video that you see on Twitter with him on stage with Charles Barkley yelling and screaming into the microphone, dropping F-bombs, saying he's the greatest football player of all time? That sells it.
It would have never worked because I mean, coming up in the 80s and 90s, I mean, you're talking, Reagan era 80s.
Right.
That dude comes out there and talks like, "I'm the greatest player ever." Oh, you imagine what they would have destroyed him. Like, you thought T.O. had a hard journey through his professional football career. It would have been even worse for Jerry Rice. He perfectly did it anonymously on a weekend in a very Terrell Owens fashion.
Yes.
And since we weren't going to get Terrell Owens' speech of saying something like that, and which is the reason why we're all upset that we're not getting it, because Terrell Owens probably thinks he's better than Jerry Rice, and that's what we loved about him.
By Adrian Wojnarowski, ESPN.com. The Chicago Bulls have signed free agent forward and former Duke Blue Devil Jabari Parker. The team announced on Saturday. It's a 2-year, $40 million deal, league sources told ESPN. The second year of the deal is a team option, league sources say, which lowers the risk on Chicago based on Parker's 2 ACL injuries and gives both sides the flexibility to turn a short-term relationship into a long-term deal should Parker stay healthy and productive next season.
And the asterisk there that you obviously clearly mentioned but didn't emphasize in bold text is it gives us an out that if you get another ACL injury, that we're not committed to you super long term, and then thus destroying our salary cap for years to come. And I hope Jabari, this is a hometown move for him. It's kind of where he wanted to go to start off with, and we still thought, well, he goes to Milwaukee, that's close enough to Chicago. He obviously went there thinking he was going to be the man, and then they drafted this guy named Giannis, and things happened. I don't know. Does it hurt Milwaukee more? Does it help Chicago more? Where do you land on the argument? Because I will say this, I do like this move of Carter. I watched. Sadly enough, I'm not going to bank everything, but we've seen guys who play well in the summer league that turn out to be decent contributors, and I think Carter may be a great contributor. Do you think this helps Chicago more, or will it hurt Milwaukee not to have that depth?
Oh gosh, that's an interesting question, because I think that if you want to look from Milwaukee, and I know this is what everybody was looking for on a Monday, was a deep dive into Milwaukee Bucks basketball.
Absolutely.
But if you look at the way Milwaukee sort of changed at the end of the year, the guy who came in and had a really big impact down the stretch was Thon Maker. A lot of people still don't know about Thon Maker. He's the Australian young kid from a couple years ago. I think he's only been in the league 2 seasons now, but he is one of these 7'1", 7'2" guys who can shoot the three and dribble the ball. He is Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant was 2 inches taller, he's just still really young and really raw, but he started to show up a lot more down the stretch and in the brief playoff appearance that the Milwaukee Bucks had. And so I think when Milwaukee looks at their core of Giannis, of Thon Maker going forward, and of Malcolm Brogdon, they added Ersan Ilyasova from Philadelphia this year, who I think probably perfectly fills in that Jabari Parker role, the stretch forward who can just come in and pick and pop some threes for you and get the occasional drive, provide some defense. And then they went and added a piece this offseason in the draft who I thought is a sneaky great pick, in that Dante Divincenko guy from Villanova who won the Final Four MVP and all that this year. So I think Milwaukee going forward, for them, it just didn't make that much sense to commit that much money to Jabari Parker, who, as mentioned, already has 2 ACL injuries and his productivity has been up and down. For the Chicago Bulls, it's a risk-free chance at a hometown star who just a couple years ago we thought was one of the next big things in the NBA from his transition from high school to Duke. It just never played out in Milwaukee, but if it does, then Chicago made a great move. Chicago's taking a little bit of a risk here and just giving them a tryout. Milwaukee's just saying, okay, we've seen it. We're sort of done committing big money to an experiment that is burned out. The funny thing to me about it all is the fact that he's getting $20 million at the age of 23 on 2 ACL injuries, and the amount of and the kind of players who get $20 million contracts in the NBA. I mean, you're talking about the likes of Jeff Teague. There's a guy named Tyler Johnson for the Miami Heat who makes $20 million a year. You're talking about guys making more money than a lot of starting quarterbacks in the NFL, which is just mind-blowingly funny. And the big conversation throughout the weekend was this whole guaranteed contracts in the NBA versus the NFL, and a lot of that has to do with the revenue sharing, and NFL players don't get the percentage of shared revenue dollars that NBA players do. But when you see a Jabari Parker who, let's be honest, has done nothing in the NBA, getting a $20 million contract. This 1 year can set him up generationally, and you have NFL players who play an entire career and don't see any kind of guaranteed money like that, no security on their future. I think this just, even to me, sheds more light on the situation that was going on over the weekend, that NFL players just don't make the money that maybe they deserve.
Well, a lot to discuss there. I know we need to take a break, but I mean, first off, simple science: a roster of 12 versus a roster of 53.
Very true.
I mean, there's your first problem, football players. We'll take a quick break and come back.